Today's World Design Day. What better time to sit down with our brand and product designers to talk about what they do here at Qwick. So in the theme of design, how did you both get started in product and brand design? We can start with Wyatt.
Yeah. So I guess like background was like in traditional graphic design. And so I kind of just grew up doing, working on Photoshop, doing things like that. And then, got into doing product design and kind of spent some time in e-commerce and have bounced around in different companies and, contracted for a while. And then that's kind of how I got to here.
I started with the path of illustration and fine art. I've been drawing ever since I could hold like a crayon or a pencil, so art has always been a big part of my life. I was curious about graphic design and I took a couple of semesters of that in college and kind of grew my career from there, not with any true like formal training, but just through learning on the job. Most of my background has been in retail, consumer packaged goods as well, so I really loved the packaging aspect of that and working with different papers and finishes. So coming to tech has been definitely different because the product is digital. We can't really package it. So it's been a new challenge and it's been really fun to figure out how to amplify the brand in different spaces.
Take us through what your typical workday might look like if you're working on one project specifically for either brand or product design.
Honestly, I feel like no 2 days are the same for me at Qwick, which is kind of nice and it's refreshing in certain ways. But usually I'll check in the morning and figure out what my top 3 priorities are, communicate that to the team. There's a lot of like strategy and planning that goes along with my role, which is also really fun to kind of get into that abstract headspace and think about how does this ladder up to the greater company strategy. And then for actual design production time, it varies from day to day what I'm working on and how much time it takes. So it's hard to quantify that, but it's fun. I'm learning a lot of different kind of exploratory tools that I haven't used before, like I'm doing some video editing and working with Premiere and just always trying to like learn new things and push the boundaries.
And then what about you, Wyatt? What would a typical day in your life look like here?
Yeah, so here in general, I feel like every day kind of very similar to Amy is like very different, kind of changes week to week. But a lot of the times is like spent meeting with different team members, getting to know them, talking about where we want to go as a product team, so that we can ladder up and then support like where we're going as a business. So it's like a mixture of meeting and talking about trade-offs and strategy around that. It's like running user tests. It's like some of the time it's like building the actual UI and the visuals of it. It's talking to engineers and working with them and figuring out like, hey, what's the technical constraints we're running with? So it's like fun. It keeps it a little bit exciting in terms of like all the variety.
How specifically are brand design and product design different? But then similarly, how would these two roles collaborate in a project?
So, design is design, first of all. Like there's that foundation that we both share of making things look good and also making them legible. And, I think like that foundation and that main goal of getting a message across is what we have in common. In product, Wyatt is working towards making sure that users understand what they're supposed to do and that things are communicated effectively. And I would say the same thing kind of extends to my role as far as like marketing the brand and marketing the product. There's a little bit more of like a pitch in what I do maybe, but I think that it all rolls up to, product and how they, both things have to be working effectively in order to really benefit. That's why we're here, is to make that work.
Having spent time in both, I would say like there's a lot of similarities, but then there's also a lot of differences. I mean, go figure, right? But when you're designing a product, you're not designing it with like your desires or your tastes or all that kind of stuff in mind, but rather you're doing it for like the user that you're trying to accomplish or the business goal you're trying to solve. Whereas like, I guess in more of the graphic design side of things is like a lot of storytelling, and it's probably a little bit less of like maybe the problem solving so much, and it's more of like you want to tell a story. How do you communicate what the company does through a visual representation type of thing, I would say. Some of the cross collaboration stuff, right, that comes in is like, the way Amy is like telling a story and like starting to think about how we communicate who the brand is on like the marketing side of things. It's like, how do we make sure that we're telling that cohesive story that is coming from marketing, and how do we carry that through into the product itself, so that when somebody comes from, okay, they've routed from landing on Qwick.com and then getting into now the product, it doesn't feel like it's a disjointed thing, but like we're carrying them through and we're continuing to guide them into those next steps and like getting all the way through working that first shift, right?
Cool.
And so it's like, how do we cross those together?
Yeah.
Pretend I know nothing about any of these topics. What specific things would you be designing as just examples, if you two could provide like 2 or 3 examples of physical output?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with that one. One, for example, would be, let's say, like the Qwick mobile app, right? What the user sees when they go and they view the actual shift itself, like the information on that, what the type of actual shift that they'll be working, the times. Another thing that could be designed would be like how some like user flows, and so that's more of like on the back end of things. Somebody gets in and wants to post a shift, it's like designing out what that entire starting point to the end point of like actually confirming that a business has posted a shift. So that could be another example. And then another one could honestly just be like emails. So it's like, what are some like automated emails that get sent out to our customers if like, hey, there's some upcoming shifts, or if we're trying to re-engage them when they haven't been in the product for a while. Like those are kind of things that product design works on, amongst many other things.
I guess it all bubbles up to ads. Everything that I work on is more or less an advertisement for Qwick, but that can include informational postcards for our sales team to use, conference booths. We have a really awesome new booth
cool.
that I helped direct and design, which is really cool. Digital ads, like I was saying, occasionally a print ad, just ads all the time.
Well then, Amy, specifically to you, can you talk a little bit about how you integrate Qwick's brand identity into every design?
Yeah, for me, it's easy because I helped craft this identity with our beautiful new brand. So I feel like because I was part of this new brand's inception, that I don't even have to think about how to incorporate it into everyday things.
Because it's your baby.
It's my baby, yeah, and I cherish my baby, and I want it to grow up and be happy and healthy. So, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think where I'm running into the possibility for like new creative, that's where I have to think back to like, okay, what is the brand standing for? How can we show this in a new way, or a more detailed way, or a more interesting way? So we recently had our photo shoot in LA that kind of presented some of those opportunities, which was really fun. So we have some new photography coming soon, which I'm excited to use. And again, it's just how can we keep this brand moving forward and keep it evolving in a way that makes sense and goes back to the foundation of who we are.
What are some common misconceptions people have about brand or product design?
Yeah, I guess I'll start on that one. I think there's probably, I don't know, maybe not more. I don't want to, say that, but like there's definitely a lot when it comes to, I feel like, product and UX design. I think like the biggest misconception is probably just like that we are making things look pretty on like the digital side, because like that's like such a small portion of it. It's just like that's the outcome that people see, but they don't see like the 4 or 5 months of like research and development work and reworking of the flows and doing the like how we support business goals and like all the stuff that comes into leading up to finally launching a part of it. So like we may have just released a small feature, but it took like 6 to 8 months of all this stuff that isn't seen behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
I think this is also applicable for design in general, but that it's easy. It's not. I mean, it can be made easy, with there are tools like Canva out there where everyone thinks that they are a designer because they have access to this, and in a certain degree that's right. But like design as a principle is something that takes years to hone and to learn. I will echo what Wyatt said as well. Like, design is not just making things look pretty. That's, I think, a common misconception. there's just so much more that goes into it.
If you could talk to your younger self, give yourself advice, any tips you have for anyone aspiring to be the role that you are today, I'd love to hear.
Keep learning, keep creating, do things that are not design based, have hobbies that are outside of design and outside of the field that you want to learn, because that informs other things and it'll spark different creativity in you. So make sure that you have a passion outside of like what you do or what you're working on. The more that you invest in keeping yourself happy and excited outside of work, then the more that your work will improve. Just keep stretching your mind.
Yeah. Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I would say like
It's a trap.
like full transparency. It's like it's a really hard industry to get into right now.
Yeah.
It's a very challenging field to get into just because of the nature of the time that we're in. But I would say like double down on networking, try to find projects, whether that's free or donating your time to learning extra, and then just like start forming your own opinions, like ask lots of questions. You have to have a drive, so like don't give up, because if it doesn't like happen right out the gate, like be persistent with it. I feel like I see a lot of younger designers just kind of give up, or they don't ask a lot of questions, or things like that, and so they just think it's going to be handed to them, but it like really does. It takes a lot of work to get into cracking into the field, but once you get in there, I think it's a lot of fun. So
I'll piggyback off of that too. Every like move you make in your career should be somewhat strategic. You're not going to start off at the top. Manage your expectations with that, but just know that when you're starting out, if you can get your foot in the door, then that's a step forward, and each step that you take incrementally will get you closer to your goal. And it does take time, but you have to be persistent, and